300 Spartans held a mountain pass against the largest army the ancient world had ever assembled, and chose death over surrender. The legend is not quite true, and the truth is better. This was the second Persian invasion of Greece. A decade after his father Darius was beaten at Marathon, King Xerxes returned to finish the conquest. With an army so vast, the ancient world could barely count it. Greece, a quarrel of small and divided city-states, faced being erased from history. The numbers, honestly, ancient writers claimed millions. Sober modern estimates put Xerxes' force in the hundreds of thousands, still the largest army yet seen, with a vast fleet beside it. Against that, the Greek cities could field a fraction. In open battle, Greece would simply be annihilated. So the Greeks chose not to fight in the open. Their only hope was to deny Persia its numbers, to find ground so narrow that a vast army would count for nothing, where a small force could hold a line that could not be outflanked. That place was Thermopylae, the Hot Gates. It was a coastal pass between sheer mountains and the sea, in places barely wide enough for a single wagon. Here the Persian multitude would have to funnel into a frontage of a few dozen men and meet, head-on, the finest heavy infantry in the world. The terrain itself was the Greek plan. Leading the defense was a Spartan king, Leonidas. And here the legend begins, for he is remembered with an army of 300 Spartans. But the truth of who actually stood at the Hot Gates is both larger than the myth, and in the end, even more remarkable than it. Because it was not 300. The Greek force at Thermopylae was perhaps 7,000 strong, drawn from many cities. The famous 300 were the Spartans specifically, Leonidas's chosen guard, everyone a man with a living son, picked because they were expected never to come back. But the Spartans were the core, and they were unlike any soldiers on earth. From boyhood, a Spartan was raised for one purpose: war. Their whole society was a military machine, their discipline absolute, their refusal to retreat a matter of sacred honor. They did not break. It had been bred out of them. They fought as hoplites in the Phalanx, a wall of overlapping shields bristling with long spears, every man armored in bronze, shoulder to shoulder. From the front, the Phalanx was nearly unstoppable, and in a narrow pass where it could not be flanked, it became something close to invincible. Against them came the army of Xerxes, immense, but far more lightly armed. Persian infantry carried wicker shields and shorter spears, built for mobility and missile fire, not for grinding shield to shield with armored hoplites. In the open, Persian numbers ruled. In the pass, that advantage vanished. Xerxes also brought his elite, the Immortals, 10,000 of the finest soldiers in the empire, so named because their number was always kept exactly full. Every fallen man instantly replaced. They were the terror of Asia, the very best Persia had. Thermopylae would put even them to the test. The ground decided everything. The pass forced Xerxes to feed his men in piecemeal, a thin stream of attackers meeting one unbroken line. His greatest asset, overwhelming numbers, was useless. He could not bring even a tenth of his army to bear. He had to fight the Greeks almost man for man. Xerxes, the sources say, waited 4 days, sure the Greeks would flee at the sight of his host. They did not. When a scout reported the Spartans calmly combing their long hair, the king was baffled. He did not yet grasp that these men had not come to win. They had come to hold, or to die. Ordered to lay down their arms, Leonidas is said to have answered with 2 words that became immortal. Molon Labe, come and take them. Warned the Persian arrows would blot out the sun, a Spartan reportedly shrugged. Then we will fight in the shade. This was the Spartan mind. So the battle was set. On one side, a few thousand Greeks, anchored by 300 Spartans, in a pass they could hold. On the other, the largest army on earth, unable to use its size. For the assault to work, Xerxes would have to do the one thing the terrain forbade: break a phalanx head-on. On the first day, Xerxes sent his men forward in waves, and the waves broke. The Greeks, fighting in the narrow throat of the pass, cut down the Persians in heaps. The attackers could not outflank, could not overwhelm. They could only press into the spears and die. The pass became a slaughterhouse. The Spartans fought with terrible skill. At times they feigned retreat, turning as if broken, then wheeled around as the Persians rushed forward in disorder and cut them down. It was discipline turned into a weapon. The attackers learned, at great cost, that even a fleeing Spartan might be a trap. In desperation, Xerxes sent in the Immortals, his very best. They failed too. In the narrow pass, the 10,000 fought and fell like the rest, unable to bring their quality to bear against the wall of shields. Xerxes, watching, is said to have leapt from his throne 3 times in alarm. A second day, and the same result. Wave after wave hurled at the pass, wave after wave thrown back with appalling losses. A few thousand Greeks were holding the entire Persian invasion at a standstill. By the strength of the ground and the discipline of the Phalanx, the impossible was happening. Xerxes was trapped in a nightmare. His vast army stood useless, his elite broken, his timetable in ruins, and the world watching a handful of Greeks humiliate the King of Kings. He could not push through and could not go around. The mountains sealed the pass. Brute force had failed him. And then came the betrayal no defense could survive. A local Greek named Ephialtes, hungry for reward, brought Xerxes a secret, a hidden mountain path that curled around the pass and came out behind the Greek line. The one thing that could undo Thermopylae was treachery, and Xerxes had bought it. That night, Xerxes sent the Immortals up the mountain track. The Greeks had posted men to guard it, but they were overwhelmed in the dark. By morning, the unbreakable position was broken, not from the front, where the Greeks had won for 2 days, but from behind. Leonidas was about to be surrounded. Word reached Leonidas at dawn. The enemy was coming down the mountain at his back. The pass was lost. There was no way left to hold it. And so he made the decision that turned a battle into legend. He would not retreat with everyone. He would cover the escape and die doing it. He dismissed most of the army, sending them to live and fight another day. But he kept his 300 Spartans, for whom retreat was unthinkable, and with them stayed 700 Thespians, who refused to leave, and a force of Thebans. Around 1,400 men chose to hold the rear. They knew exactly what it meant. With the Persians closing from both sides, there would be no escape and no rescue. This was no longer a defense. It was a sacrifice, a choice to die in that pass so the rest of the Greek army and the cause of Greek freedom might survive. They stayed anyway. The last stand was savage beyond telling. Leonidas fell early, and the Spartans fought over his body, driving the Persians back again and again to keep it. When their spears shattered, they fought with swords. When the swords broke, the sources say, they fought with hands and teeth. In the end, the Persians, unwilling to close with such men, pulled back and buried them under arrows. The Spartans, the Thespians, the last defenders, all died where they stood, in the pass they had been asked to hold. Xerxes had his victory. It had cost him a piece of his army, and all his pride. Strip away the legend, and Thermopylae was a Greek defeat. The pass fell. The road into Greece lay open. Xerxes marched south, and within weeks his army took Athens and burned it. By the cold measure of the map, the Persians had won, and the sacrifice of the 300 had not stopped them at all. So why is Thermopylae remembered as one of history's noblest stands, not a failure? Because it was never only about the pass. Those 3 days bled the Persians, shattered the myth of their invincibility, and showed every Greek city that the King of Kings could be made to pay. And the truth beneath the legend is better than the legend. The myth says 300 held back millions by something like magic. The reality is that thousands held a pass through terrain and discipline, and that when the end came, 1,400 chose to stay and die so others could live. That was not a miracle of numbers. It was a choice. The Spartans did not hold Thermopylae because they could not be beaten. They were beaten and knew they would be. They held it because they had decided some things are worth dying for, and retreat was not among the options they would accept. They were buried where they fell, and over them was raised an epitaph that has echoed for 25 centuries. Go tell the Spartans, stranger passing by, that here, obedient to their laws, we lie. No boast, no plea, only men who had done their duty to the end, asking nothing but to be remembered. Thermopylae did not save Greece, but it bought time, and it lit a fire. The Persians had taken the pass and burned Athens, and still the Greek cities did not surrender. They drew together, in fury and in hope, for the battle that would actually decide the war. And that battle would be fought at sea. The army that could not be stopped at Thermopylae was about to meet the one thing Xerxes had not reckoned with. The Greek fleet, waiting in a narrow strait where, once again, overwhelming numbers would become a trap. The fate of Greece would be decided in the waters off an island called Salamis.